Today we're in section 10.2 and we will be measuring arcs and angles. So we have a lot of new vocab and some new formulas in this lesson. Oops. Okay, so first vocab word is an arc. So go to your vocabulary section of your packet. Whoops. Sometimes my board does really crazy things. Okay. So if you think about your circle, you pick 2 points on your circle. The arc is like a portion of the circumference. An arc is, if you pick 2 points on the circle, it's all of the points that connect those two. Portion of your circumference. And it's the set of all the points in between 2 points on your circle. So there's a difference between your arc length and your arc measure. So the arc length is like if you take a piece of string and lay it along your arc and then took a ruler and laid that arc flat against the ruler. An arc length is like it's like in inches or feet or meters. It's like the distance from this point to this point. It's the length of that arc. Whereas the arc measure has to do with degrees. Arc measure has to do with degrees. So be like 100 degrees or something. And then a central angle is an angle whose vertex is the center of the circle. When the vertex of the circle, the vertex of the angle is the center of the circle. Angle whose vertex is the center of the circle. So that's not necessarily a central angle unless I specifically tell you that that point is the center of the circle. So for it to be a central angle, the vertex has to be exactly on the center of the circle. Okay, so in a circle, this is the center of your circle. All the way around the circle, if you add up all those angles, they all have to add up to 360 degrees. So if I added this angle plus this angle plus this angle plus this angle, if I added up all of those central angles, they're going to have to add up to 360 degrees. All the way around the circle, 360 degrees. So on this problem, I know 2 of those central angles, and I'm looking for x, which is the central angle, because its vertex is at the center. So I'm going to take these 2 angles and add them together, and that would give me 310. Then I'm going to subtract that from 360. And that means that x, this central angle, has to be 50 degrees. So x equals 50 degrees. So if x is so if you want to double check and make sure that you did this correctly, you can take all 3 of those angles, 165 plus 145 plus 50, add them all together, and they should add up to 360, which they do. Pause the video and try part B on your own. Okay, for part B, I'm going to do 40 plus 85 plus, this is 90. 40 plus 85 plus 90 gives me 215. So I'm going to subtract 215 from 360, and that gives me x to be 145 degrees. Okay, so there's 2 types of arcs. So on our vocab sheet, a major arc, you pick 2 points, let's say A and B. You pick 2 points on your circle. The major arc is the longest arc that connects those 2 points. Really want it to be red. The major arc is the longest point. Oh, well, it's going to be blue. And the minor arc is the shortest distance that connects those 2 points. So the major arc is more than halfway around the circle. And the measure of that major arc is going to be somewhere, it's going to be somewhere in between 180 and 360, because all the way around would be 360 degrees. And it's more than halfway, so half of 360 is 180. So we name major arcs with 3 letters. So this would be arc A, C, B. So the order of the letter is super important. It tells you which direction you go. You start at A, then you go to C, and then you go to B. So we have to use 3 letters to name a major arc. A minor arc is less than halfway around the circle. And it's going to be greater than 0, but less than 180. So if it was 180, that would be halfway. And since it's less than 180, or less than halfway around, it has to be less than 180. So a minor arc, you can just use 2 letters. So this would be arc AB. If I put a third point there, if I said that was D, I could also totally call this arc ADB. Just because it has 3 letters doesn't mean that it's automatically a major arc. If it has 2 letters, it's definitely a minor arc. And if it's a major arc, it has to have 3 letters. But a minor arc, here's an example of a minor arc that you can use 3 points to name. And then the last type of arc is a semicircle, which we're pretty familiar with semicircles. Semicircles are exactly halfway around the circle. So exactly halfway. The measure of that arc is exactly 180 degrees. And if this is a semicircle, if it's cutting your circle in half, then this chord that's connecting those endpoints of your arc has to be the diameter. So if this is a semicircle, then the chord that connects the endpoints of the arc is the diameter of the circle. This is half, this is half. 2 semicircles. Your diameter cuts your circle into 2 semicircles. All right, so if we look at this example, we're going to use circle B, and we're going to find all of these different arc measures. And we're going to determine if they're a major or a minor arc. So the first thing I'm going to do is I notice, okay, so this angle is 55 and this angle is 35. CG is a chord, and it intersects the center of the circle. It passes through the center of the circle, so it's a diameter. That makes this arc, CDG, that is a semicircle. So that means the measure of that arc is 180 degrees. So I'm going to do 180 minus 55 minus 35 to get this arc to be, or this central angle to be 90 degrees. That arc measure is 90 degrees. And then these are vertical angles, so this is 55 degrees. And then these are supplementary. They form a linear pair, so you're going to do 180 minus 55, which is 125 degrees. So the measure of an arc is the same as the measure of a central angle. So let's go back to our vocab sheet really fast. The arc measure is equal to the measure of the central angle. So if I told you this arc was 100 degrees, this central angle also would have to be 100 degrees. The measure of the arc and the measure of the central angle are the same. The measure of the arc and the measure of the central angle are the same. So if we go back to this example. So first part, I'm going to find the measure of arc DF. So the measure of arc DF is going to be the same as the measure of that central angle, which is 90 degrees. And if it's 90 degrees, that means it's less than 180. So it's a minor arc. Arc AG is 55 degrees because the measure of that central angle is 55 degrees. The measure of arc AG is 55 degrees, making it a minor arc. The measure of arc CDA. CDA, remember the order of those letters matters. We go from C to D and from D to A. So we're going to have to add up all of those central angles. 55 plus 90 plus 35 plus 55. 55 plus 90 plus 35 plus 55. That's 235 degrees. So the measure of that arc is 235 degrees, which makes it bigger than 180, which makes it a major arc. Then the next one, FGD. From F, this is super important, pay attention to the order. You go from F to G, and then from G all the way around to D. The order matters. It's not FDG, it's FGD. From F to G, then from G to D. So I do 35 plus 55 plus 125 plus 55. 35 plus 55 plus 125 plus 55 gives me 270. Or another way you can think about it is all the way around the circle would be 360. I'm just not going this distance DF, so I just subtract DF, which is 90, from 360. And 90 minus 360 is 270. So since the measure of that arc is bigger than 180, it's also major. And then finally, ACD. From A to C and C to D. So I'm going to do 125 plus 55. The measure of arc ACD is 180, and it's exactly 180, which makes it a semicircle.